Welcome to Production Value Matters, the business event podcast, brought to you by Byrne Production Services. Here, we explore the different ways business events can bring value to your organization, the latest technological advances in the event space, as well as providing you with actionable strategies to make a business event a success. Let's create an exceptional event experience.
Welcome to another episode of Production Value Matters, the business events podcast. Today, I'm really excited to be joined by Alex Grist, the Director of Events at Express Flooring. With a notable track record in the home improvement sector, Alex has turned challenging territories into success stories. She currently leads all field marketing managers and brand ambassadors and significantly impacts market growth for her company. Alex, welcome to the show, and how are you today?
Matthew, great to join you. I'm awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't you give us a little bit of a background, like what's your story and how you got here today?
Absolutely. So I think like a lot of people, I stumbled upon events very haphazardly. I had quit my job in nonprofits and kind of didn't really have a plan. And I had begun just doing different things, trying out different roles to see what I liked. And that time took a lot longer to find the perfect kind of role that I had anticipated for sure. So I, tried out different organizations and things, and nothing really fit. So I was working with a temp agency and just going through a string of interviews where it just felt like it was kind of hitting your head against a wall for sure. And I remember I kind of set a 5-year plan of what I wanted to accomplish. And I kind of encouraged everyone in the beginning of their career to do this, because if you set those goals for yourself, it's really going to give you a lot more direction, I think. So I set those 5-year goals, and I ended up getting sent on this horrible interview with a company. And I mean, the president of the company asked me questions like, what kind of girl were you in middle school? And I mean, it was just a very odd, very big disconnect. So I kind of was at the end of my rope with interviewing. I was tired of everything. And my recruiter at the time was like, listen, I've got this position, and it's just a weekend. It's a temp job. You'll be doing an event. Would you be interested? And I was like, I don't want to do this. And she said, just give it a shot. It pays well. And I was like, okay, fine. So I ended up going to this window company, and they were doing a home show that weekend. And it was just a crazy twist of events. The head of their national event department ended up being there, which I would find out later on never happens. Their division manager was there. And so they were all training us, kind of telling us the basics of, events and what the products were. And so I showed up to my very first home show that weekend, having never been to one, period. Never really even been to an event at all. And it just clicked. It was like I finally had found what I was looking for. And so I took to it like a duck to water, honestly. And they brought me on full time as a brand ambassador, which really doesn't happen very often for brand ambassadors. So it's a lot of just positive movement for me in a few months. So I started working with them, got really involved in the home improvement industry. Definitely was active in every side of it with customer service, operations, sales, really dove into what the companies did. So it kind of helped with the event side for sure. And then within about 6 months of being a brand ambassador, I actually ended up getting promoted 2 levels to regional event manager at this company, and got 6 territories, grew over the next couple of years to about 14, 23, and then eventually left there and just kind of was in a gamut of some of the most popular home improvement companies in the nation. So that all was kind of just a lucky strike, so to speak, but it gave me a lot of opportunities to see how events are run in multiple different sectors, verticals, and that really equipped me for what I do now, which is working with Express Flooring, building their team from scratch.
Hmm. And so, what are some of the core aspects of a brand that can be successfully showcased at an exhibition? So, like when you meet an attendee, how can you make sure they receive the right type of brand experience?
Yeah, so I think consistency is the biggest thing. When you go out across town, you can recognize specific logos. You know what those brands stand for, what you're going to get without even necessarily seeing any wording about what's to be offered there. So I think it's really critical that as you're building an event team, brand awareness, whatever for your company, that you're working specifically on getting that consistent I would say color scheme, whatever logo message across the board. So whether that's in your displays, the specific colors you choose for your booths, direct mail, anything that kind of correlates, it's important to kind of make sure that that consistency is always present.
Okay. And so, when you first joined Express Flooring, what was their event strategy, and what have you done to change it while you were there?
Well, we didn't really have one for sure. One of the reasons they brought me on is Express had definitely been more of a home show only specific event style, which a lot of companies have done over the years. So when I came on board, we did across all of our territories, we did about 10 home shows a year total. So we had very basic vinyl banners, mismatched shades of red, a lot of inconsistency, a lot of just different mishmashes of logos that were old and new and things. And so what I did when I came on board is I kind of talked to the team about what is the message we want to get across to the consumer. And so we came up with a very consistent logo and design that has evolved a little bit, I would say, but it has a very clear message as to what we offer. The logo is very prominent in all of our displays. Um, you know, a lot of our colors are very intentional with booth psychology. I mean, that's absolutely imperative, I think, when you're designing a booth. But yeah, so just getting that consistent branding across the board to where it's going to look the same no matter what city you're in is really imperative.
And so, how does Express Flooring tailor its event strategies to boost brand awareness? So, do you have a specific example of that strategy and how it worked well in that market?
Yeah, so we kind of do something I think that's kind of crucial to a lot of development in that we do all of our events tailoring based off of what's going on with the marketing side itself. So we're very intentional about when our direct mail goes out, when our social media goes out. And that is very consistent with a lot of our larger shows. So we have a lot of traffic that piggybacks off of each other, I think. People either see us at the events or they saw a direct mail piece and they say, oh, that show's coming up. I'm going to go check in with them, book an appointment. So that's really been crucial is correlating those a lot closer and just making sure that all of our imagery actually mimics each piece. So, our flooring is on our displays, our flooring is going to be on our direct mail. It's going to be the same colors, styles, etc.
Hmm. And so, you had mentioned just previously that consistency in the brand presence is key, but then also that you want to tailor that execution to the specific show or market, right? So,
Right.
can I ask you, how are you maintaining that brand consistency when the bespoke nature of a specific show?
Yeah. So, I guess we're lucky in one instance in that our primary product and service that we focus on is flooring. And so we don't have a wide variety that we're trying to kind of consistently push across the board. It's just residential flooring installation, and that's our sweet spot. And so everything is going to be revolving around a happy customer and a customer experience. So, logos on all of our shirts, all of our collateral, all of our displays. We want that to equate with what our core values are as a company. And so, we're trying to just make sure that anytime we're at an event, it's cultivating this experience that carries across the board from installation, the design consultation element, things like that.
Okay. And so, what innovative marketing tactics have you found most effective in engaging new demographics at events? Is there a recent event where that specific tactic significantly increased attendee engagement?
It varies depending on the territory, I've noticed. Some of our territories have much more of a higher age range demographic, some a lower. So we try to kind of navigate it based on the area that we're in. Some we tailor it for pet festivals that we're at. So we do things that are going to be more tailored to, having your dog out there, or some are more. We did a show that was floral based. So we had floral displays in the booth and things like that. But as far as in-house kind of promotions that we've done that have worked really well, we consistently do monthly promotions as a company, which we try to always present in the booth. And we also do an additional discount for booking an appointment within the booth that day. So that has been really successful as far as showing there's an added incentive for coming in person and connecting with us, for sure.
And so that sort of leads into how you're measuring the impact of that event on your brand awareness. Is there a specific metric that you're using that is most indicative of that success?
Yeah, so we do book all of our leads in booth, which is a little different from a lot of other companies. But we do also put all of our event specific phone lines in our collateral. So we're able to tailor anything that we have attached to an event based off of, that specific phone line or measurable, item that we're using. So we've had a lot of success from our brochures that are tailored specifically for events, our different discount cards, things like that. So primarily, we are focused on that in-booth immediate lead set, but we have a really great approach, I feel like, in being able to connect post-event as well with our customers.
That's excellent. And so, could you describe a successful campaign or interaction that significantly enhanced the customer engagement and the brand awareness at that event? And what key element do you think made that campaign successful?
Yeah. So one of our recent campaigns that I think was really popular, that helped us significantly in our events, was our Better Than a BOGO offer, which is buy one room, get two rooms free. And that raised a lot of interest, not only through our direct mail opportunities and things like that, but in booth for sure. So it provided a lot of opportunity for us to not only engage with the customer about our process, because I think a lot of times people can be confused when they see an advertisement of what does this all entail. But it really allowed us to be able to engage and provide a great quality lead for our design consultants and make sure it was the right opportunity for our customers. So it was extremely successful and one of our favorite promotions for sure.
That's great. And so then how are you ensuring that the brand awareness generated at events translates into like real tangible outcomes through collaboration, say with other departments? And again, like, is there a specific example of where that that you can give where that collaboration worked out really well?
Yeah, I would say one of the most important things that we've tried to do throughout this past year, especially, is really, really work on decompartmentalizing all of the departments in our company. So we've become very dialed in to how we can collaborate together and create an element of trust and safety within the organization to say, hey, what happened with this lead? Walk us through if there was anything that we could have done better on our end or vice versa. And so a lot of our event managers and myself are very dialed into what is going on consistently every day with event leads. So once the appointment is booked, we're getting in there and we're following up day to day with what's happening, making sure that we're performing at our optimal level and creating the best, um, consumer to business kind of operation that we can. So that means, the customer satisfaction, all the way back to us originally setting that lead, that those steps are completely followed through to make sure that we're performing at an optimal level.
Excellent. And so, just want to sort of take off on a tangent for 1 second here and talk about how your event strategy is integrating into the sort of larger business objectives of the organization. And are you finding that we certainly returned to live and gotten more out there over the last 2 years. The industry for trade shows, exhibits, conferences, etc., has just skyrocketed. And so, are you finding that live events are becoming the more go-to lead generation and sales business development channel within your company?
Absolutely. I mean, we have seen significant growth in the year and a half that this team has been up and running full time. I mean, like I was talking about, we were doing, 10 shows a year. We're up to doing around 60 shows per month now. And yeah, I mean, it's especially when you're looking at the dynamics that we're facing out in the industry right now across all events, where advertising maybe is taking that toll with the presidential elections or whatever kind of uptick you have in the digital spend. Events is able to kind of come in and combat that for a much lower cost per lead than you would get in a majority of your lead generation sources. So what we found is, just us being in even a lower dollar event now, where before maybe you had the home shows that were your bread and butter. A lot of times we're finding that some of these one-off farmers markets, women's expos, things like that, are producing better generation and business for us than even some home shows or larger scale events that used to be top performers pre-COVID. So we've seen an exponential increase in events, and I would say honestly a much higher quality than we saw in years prior. So even if the amount of or the quantity of leads or consumer business that you got wasn't as high, the quality and the dollar amount I'm finding is much higher than it was in the past. So it's been really interesting to observe. Yeah.
And so, what sort of motivated that change? Was it coming out of the pandemic and everybody just wanted in the organization just wanted to get out there, or was it purposeful to say, look, as you said, we've been doing the home shows for years; those are our bread and butter. But was there some kind of indication that you saw in the data that said, hey, we need to go to this farmers market or the women's show or whatever it might be? Was there some kind of data point that you looked at, or was it sort of a let's roll the dice and see what happens?
Yeah, I think a lot of it's kind of a mix of both, honestly. There's a lot of data. And again, it comes down to territory. Some territories I can have one city that has a show that blows it out of the water and another city that has the exact same show that completely crashes. So you really have to be very deliberate and intentional in how you navigate the waters of whatever city you're working with. Some people, we have a completely different approach in how we connect with customers than we do in another city. So it's really, I think, vital that any event team or event managers are really just nose to the grindstone trying to figure out what works best. And that comes down to a lot of observation. I think networking is crucial. That's going to provide an absolutely, great web of people for you to kind of figure out, hey, what are you hearing? What's the kind of chatter about what's going on with this show? Or have you heard promotions for this show or event, whatever. But I think one of the things that I've really seen a lot of companies mistake, or I would call it a mistake, is that post COVID, that first year, it was absolutely just crazy financial year for a lot of people. Like there was money just thrown into these events. Customers were ready to go because they were ready to get out of the house. And then a lot of consumers kind of pulled back a little bit. And we saw a little bit of a shift. And for businesses that didn't understand the importance of building a strong foundation, it really hurt them because they pulled back on their event teams much too early, I believe. So, I would see event teams get started because it would just be a phenomenal killer year for them and have an enormous upward tick in their trajectory, but they didn't know how to sustain it. And so that's where we kind of began to really pull data and do different metrics and things and see, hey, it's important that we're filling in all of our weekends with multiple events, things that are outside of the box, things where you wouldn't necessarily see a flooring company. But those kind of things are what ended up actually saving our bacon in moments where we would have shows that were rained out or, just an event that wasn't promoted well that normally would have been in the past. So I think just kind of really doing your due diligence is extremely important.
Yeah, you're sort of touching on the trend that's happened in sort of the major consumer events over the last few years, certainly a little bit pre-pandemic, and then it was certainly exacerbated, excuse me, after the pandemic, like CES and all of these, where large major brands were pulling out of those big shows. And they were starting to either do their own shows or find secondary market shows like you've just described. And so do you think that is sort of a trend going forward in the future that's going to be shaping exhibit events, that, the big sort of bread and butter shows maybe will contract a little bit, and that, as you said, the farmers market show, maybe not for Microsoft, but if for other business brands, will potentially be a new avenue and a new market that would open up?
Oh, 100%. Absolutely. And I think what we're seeing is because so many event managers are now beginning to dial into that. And I mean, I really think that is a very new to the industry kind of mentality. But I think because so many event managers are changing their perspective, we're going to see a shift in dynamics with a lot of the show promoters that I think have gotten a little out of hand. Honestly, there's some that overcharge and under promote now because they got kind of comfortable with people thinking that they needed to be in that show. And so I think it's up to event industry leaders to really hold people accountable for how are you spending the promotional dollars to get people in. We're not comfortable anymore with just hearing 40,000 people are going to show up and 250 end up showing up. So, I think it's imperative that we as an industry get a backbone and really hold these promoters to a different standard. And in doing that, I think it's going to open up the door for a lot of other smaller promoters to get more ground than they had before. So it's going to be an interesting shift, I think, in the next 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, we're certainly not, we talk to a lot of event professionals in sort of the whole gambit of the industry, and the consistent refrain that everybody has is that we still haven't settled, right? Like everybody sort of expected that we came out of the pandemic and that we would resettle into something.
Yeah.
And I was recently asked I was doing a talk at an event, and somebody said, "What do you see in the future?" And I was like, I am done trying to predict the future because, every time I've said something, and I think this was around like a big virtual event platform went under the day before this talk.
Yeah.
And I was like, 2 months ago, we were all saying virtual events is the future, and we were wrong. And so I'm not predicting anymore. But I always like to end these episodes with a practical tip. We have event professionals listening, and so based on your experience, what advice or practical tip would you give someone to give to other marketing managers aiming to enhance their brand's presence through live events?
Yeah, absolutely. My biggest tip is that it comes down to people. That translates from your team to your customers. And the biggest thing I would say is just call out greatness in whatever person you're with at that moment. So, a lot of people have not had their skill sets pulled out, or, have never been even really kind of congratulated or supported in their careers. So it's really important to just kind of believe in that person and tell them, hey, show me what makes you tick, what helps you get up in the morning and what gets you excited. Because I've seen shifts in team members that people were ready to write off that ended up becoming top performers in this industry, just because they needed somebody to believe in them and help them process how they succeed well. So just take time out of your day to really just, find that humanity and the greatness in people is my biggest way, I think.
Absolutely. Well, thanks, Alex, for joining me on the podcast today. And please let everybody know where they can find you if they want to reach out.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Production Value Matters, the business event podcast, is brought to you by Byrne Production Services. To find out more about Byrne Production Services and how putting on events can drive value for your business, visit byrneproductionservices.com. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. And on behalf of the team here at Production Value Matters, thank you so much for listening.